uh, turn this up and down for each person, so they're labeled there for you. So like you would be
5, 4, 3, 2.
I'll check.
Okay.
So this is 1, 2. This one. 5, 4, 3,
Cool. Thank you.
1. Depending on how many people are in here.
Yeah, but at least it works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, you're not getting any more notifications, right?
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, no.
Okay.
I think that one was just up there.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome stuff. I think you're good to go.
Oh, that's not just the compliment.
That's a call.
And I was gonna say, if you want an orange soda, Eric just gave me an extra that he had that.
Oh, yeah, I have an extra on soda.
So if you want it.
If you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Or unless there's some water in that room or something. Is there water in there?
Yeah, but do you prefer?
I do.
You prefer
I do.
orange soda? Sure. I'll be back.
All right, thank you.
I just prefer to be a golfer. I was trying to get some baseball stuff.
So you pulled everything out of your closet?
Yeah, it was starting to get bad. I had to look at mess trying to find one for the outfit. So you did come crippled.
I did. I did come in.
So
As the crippled pink lady.
okay, so what are you?
Oh, Lord, I knew it. I told you. You ever seen the movie Green?
Yes.
Pink Ladies from Green.
Oh,
They had
okay.
pink ladies in the T-Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, you only seen.
It's been a while.
Have you seen Green? Ever? He was like, no, it's coaching. Thank you.
I don't have a straw, but I think we have some in here.
He said, I said, that is only hot.
Yeah. I've seen it. It's been a long time.
He said, is it a musical? I said, yes, it's a musical. It's coaching. I thought that was so funny. Because you're my, you didn't press Did you print out? Did you print out? No, I can.
But we would have a problem with the front.
I think Rob said she was gonna place a service call.
That was so funny.
Oh, you asked this morning?
Yeah. You said no.
Is it music?
Yeah.
Taco cheese?
That is really hot. That is not great. Oh, Lord. Whatever.
All we've got are spare straws.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I can drink it. Thank you.
Cool. Enjoy.
Hey.
And feel free to just,
Just
either
call you when
send
it's
me a
over?
Teams message or something if something's weird.
Okay.
I can run in here.
I will. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, man.
Glad to.
Hey, how you doing?
Anybody need a camera?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Colonel Lee.
Okay. You got everything squared away, John?
John is not in the meeting yet. He should be on his way. He was in his office on a call.
Okay, so Leroy, you got it going. Okay, good then. Do we have any committee members online?
Yes, I'm on the line now.
Okay, good morning, Leo. How are you, Leo?
Yeah, Huggins.
Oh, good morning, Derek. How are you, Derek?
Fine, sir.
Turn it on, and then try it again.
Who is acting as our clerk this morning, Leroy?
We have Ms. Tanisha Gibbons is in helping us this morning.
Okay, she'll be our clerk.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.
I had to go into the settings, of course, all right.
Ms. Gibbons?
Yes,
Ms.
sir.
Gibbons,
Yes, sir.
are we ready to rock and roll? It's 12 o'clock.
John is not here. Let me check and see, is Joe or Corey, Jim, on the line?
Okay, check and see. They supposed to know though, I thought.
Yes, sir. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Great.
Good, good.
Good morning, Joe.
I
Morning. Afternoon now.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, I tell you what then, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The COVID-19 ad hoc subcommittee meeting, Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority. I'm calling the meeting to order at this time. I'm gonna ask the clerk to do a roll call of committee members, and then we'll determine whether we have a quorum or not. Give me a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Starting with you, Colonel Leaks,
Yes, here.
Ms. Mood,
Here.
Mr. Huggins,
Here.
you have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. It has been determined that we have a quorum. The next item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Properly moved and second that we adopt the agenda. But before we vote, any additions, deletions, or changes that anyone think we need to make to the agenda?
Colonel Lee.
Yes.
It's not so much a motion to change the agenda, but out of respect of the committee, the ad hoc committee, the staff members that are supposed to be here at this meeting today, would you please have the clerk give us a presence of the individuals that are supposed to be and the ones that are not?
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and vote on the adoption of the agenda, and then we'll go back to that if that's all right with you, Mr. Huggins. So
That's fine.
all in favor? Okay. All in favor of adoption of the agenda, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Now, at this time, we entertain Mr. Huggins' suggestion.
And Colonel Leak,
Clerk,
Colonel Leak, the elaboration, the reason why I was saying that if we're going to adopt the agenda and individuals are not present to present, then I think that's a problem.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, let's see what who are those staff members that are supposed to be here at this time? I see we got who are the staff members supposed to be here? Who would know that?
The only staff members,
Go ahead.
Colonel Leaks, only staff members that are supposed to be present. We have Corey Gagnon from RATP Dev, Joe Sanchez, RATP Dev, Leroy, myself, and John. But I believe Joe is on. I don't believe Corey Gagnon is on though.
Okay.
I'm
right.
on.
Oh, Corey, you on? Okay.
Oh, he's
good.
there.
Yes, sir.
Good. Yeah. Okay. So looks like everybody's present who's supposed to be here. And
Thank you.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. All right. So let's move on to the next order of business, which is the adoption of the minutes from October 16, 2020. And that's found on pages 2 through 5. Can I get a motion?
Huggins motion.
I second.
It's properly moved and second. Any changes or deletions that anyone would like to make to these motions before we vote on it? If not, all in favor of the motion of the adoption of the minutes, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All right, the motion passed, so the minutes are adopted as written. Item number 4, discussion of action items, and that will lead us into 4A, and I'm going to ask Leroy to take the lead on that item. Leroy?
Okay, yes, sir, Colonel Leaks, what we'll have, Corey Gagnon and Joe Sanchez will talk about the operations.
then I will come back and talk about the testing and the executive order and our COVID-19 policy. So I'll turn it over to Corey or Joe.
Okay, Corey or Joe, go ahead. Whichever one wants to take the lead.
All right. I'll start off with the food service. Let's see. So far from October 16th, 2020 to October 30th, 2020, we have about 91 deliveries. For the month of October, we have an estimated 210 deliveries so far. According to our subcontractor, TCS, that seems to be in an uptick. We had participation by our staff with Lovelace yesterday, the 27th and the 28th of this week. It was good participation. Many of the team members received their negative test results, and obviously they're still reaching out to our employees results. So far, it's been positive related to that. Yes, good, Colonel.
Yeah, I noticed you said. I'm just wondering what's the. I know that that the drivers are getting these tests, but is this optional for people to get the COVID test? And if so, how about the staff? Is everybody getting that test? Because I was up there the other day, and I'm not sure that that everybody got the test, and I'm wondering how is that working.
Well,
Hey, Colonel Weeks, this is, you got a job if you want it, but Colonel Weeks, this is Corey Gagnon, General Manager. We do the testing over a few days, so what you saw was just only one part of the testing. Most of the drivers and staff are extremely excited that the service is provided and partaking it to almost 100%. We're really glad that the Comet is giving us this service, and the folks there are taking advantage of it. I know I take advantage of it. I know Joe takes advantage of it, but I'm not sure that we can literally force people to take.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So, okay, people have the option to not take it or take it or not take it then, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I would see so. I'm not sure how you could strong arm somebody into taking a medical test. Even though COVID has some pretty, loose extremities of, there's some wide latitudes you can take with COVID, but I'm not sure I could force someone to take a test.
Yeah, I understand what Mr. Gates is saying, and I wonder if we are keeping a grid. I'm not talking about with names attached, but just to know the percentage of staff that actually have been tested, because I think that's an important piece of data for us without revealing individual identities.
Yeah, Ms. Mood, I don't know where. I guess you're out on your sunscreen porch there, but if you're coming in a little garbled, can you
Let me
adjust it?
Speaker. I'm actually parked under a tree in the parking lot, so hold on.
Okay.
All right, is it better if I don't have you on the speaker?
Oh, no, you're much better right now. Yeah, you're great.
Okay, I can do that.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So
Okay.
actually, what I was asking was, if we keep track and have some sort of grid that tells us what percentage of the staff have been tested and what percentage are testing negative. And I'm not asking for a by name report. It's important to me that we protect individual privacy. But if I would like for us to have the data that tells us, whether 96% have been tested or 58% have been tested, and what the numbers are. And because I think that gives us a more complete picture of what we know about the status in our worker population.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we keeping track of that, or is Lovelace keeping track of that, or some way that you all can look and see what that data point is?
Go ahead, Joe. Corey.
Ms. Mood, this
Hi
is
there,
Leroy.
this is, oh, there we go. Go ahead, Leroy, I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Basically, all the testing that we have done through Lovelace, as far as employees or staff, we haven't had any positive results. All have been negative results. Since this is voluntarily, volunteer testing, when I get those reports back from Lovelace, I just make sure that they go down to the HR person at RETP Dev. But we haven't been keeping the exact percentage. That's something that I could go back and look at. But I would say, I think the last time we did them, we may have had between the staff upstairs and downstairs, I think we did a total of maybe 55 total tests. But if you want that broken out by the number of operators, we'd have to, I could, look at that between now and the next COVID meeting.
I don't really need to have it by job. I mean, the more we break it down into categories, the more possibility there is for identifying individuals, and that's not what I'm after. I'm just after a picture of whether we are, of our total working population at the Comet, both in the operators and our staff, have at each testing point what numbers, and so then from that we can get a percentage from the total number of people employed. What numbers are we testing, how many, and then as you point out, I mean, so far that testing hadn't showed up positives in the testing that we are doing. But do you see what I'm after? Because if we're trying to be protective by testing, then it matters to me whether the testing we are doing reflects a picture of 89% of our population of workers or 20% of our population of workers. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's all I'm asking for. I think we already have the information, and the HR person could structure just reporting that out in a way that it protects individual identities, and I think that's important.
Well, okay. Any other point on that? But because I agree with Lil 100%, because I thought we had 100% participation in that thing. And when I walk into the Comet Central up there, I always had that feeling of confidence that I was walking into a place that was basically COVID-free based on the testing. Now I find out that maybe, we might have 80% of the people sitting up in there positive, and they don't know it because they don't take a test. I didn't know it was a voluntary type thing, because if it's voluntary, and we find out that people are not taking advantage of it, we just will not even have it at all. That's the way I see it. But okay.
Well, and here's the other point I want to make. Mr. Leaks, I understand what you're saying about that making you feel safer, but I think we all have to realize that the test is at a point in time. I mean, if I can test negative this morning, run into somebody this afternoon, and be positive tomorrow. So we know we're just getting a snapshot in time, but I'm interested in how big a snapshot we're getting.
I agree with you 100%. I said that from day one when they were talking about everybody got to do all this testing. I said, get a test this morning and then go out and have a big party tomorrow and come back positive the next day. So, yeah, I agree with you. But anyway, well, Mr. Leroy, can you you can follow up on what Ms. Mood is saying and see what we can come up with that and get some stats on that and see whether we are doing any good up there or whether we just have an exercise in futility. With our testing program.
Yes.
I just add one more thing, and I would say that every test that we do has value. So I don't want us to say, oh, well, if we're not doing everybody, it's not worth doing, because I believe every test we do does have value.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Colonel
Yes,
Lee.
it does. Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And it probably was already covered, maybe I missed it, but the frequency of testing, what is the frequency of testing?
Well, what's the frequency of that, Leroy? Every month?
Right now, we're doing it monthly.
Yeah, monthly. Mm-hmm. But I guess our concern right now, Mr. Huggins, is that we go in there and supposed 100 people to be tested, and only 10 take the test. I'm gonna use that example. And 90 people walking around there might be positive, and we don't have no way of knowing. So, as far as I'm concerned, for where we look, those 10 came back negative, and then you got 90 out there that's still positive. We hadn't done any good. We still don't know what's going on with our employees. But just as Corey said, you can't force anybody to take the test. I thought everybody I thought it was a requirement that you take tests to hold your employment. But maybe
Well, I think the encouraging thing is too that what Mr. Gagnon said about the staff is as eager to have this information. I mean, individual staff people are as eager to have as we are, and so it sounds like we're not dealing with a problem of people resisting being tested, because just from his report, it sounds like the staff is really welcoming this opportunity to know where their health status stands. Am I right, Mr. Gagnon?
You are correct.
But you're not aware of what percentage of the staff is taking the test, whether it's 50% or more or less.
I am not, but what we can do is I'll sit down with Ziamara, who's our HR person, and Leroy, and we will see if we can get a number to present to you at the next COVID meeting. I don't think it's anything I can do in the next 10 or so minutes.
Sounds good to me. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you much.
And I'll listen. Yeah, no problem. And Mr. Colonel Leaks, I just want to be clear that the folks that are taking it, I mean, it will comprise the bus drivers, the office staff, the common staff, also the maintenance staff, the DART office, and even I think I saw yourself down there the other day when we met. So I mean, I don't know how good of a snapshot that is when we mix all those modes or what we're trying to look at, but I'll see how well I can break it down into different groups. No promises though.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comments?
You're welcome. Before
we move on to the next item?
I would like to add, Corey and Joe, how about the thermometer checks? Is everybody that works in the office and drivers and mechanics going through that thermometer check daily?
Yes.
You can say that with certainty, that everybody goes through that check daily before they go to their respective work stations?
Everybody checks their temperature. They stand, and if they're not wearing a mask, it comes up. And they do it in paratransit. I know Jeff's TCS.
So you wouldn't mind if we had one of our oversight person in the morning come in and just watch all the mechanics, admin people, drivers, supervisors, everybody that works in that building go through one of those 2 thermometer checks to validate your statement?
So you're talking about everybody, or we're talking about operators?
Joe, what I said is everybody.
Everybody, that's concerned.
Okay. Well, I'm just talking about the operators. The mechanics, I know some of the mechanics, they just go straight to the back to the shop.
What about managers and supervisors?
Managers and supervisors check their temperatures. I check my temperature every day, just to be that example, for everybody, And I use both thermometers. When I go upstairs, I use the one you guys have in front of the elevator. So I like to lead by example, so that way the team sees me checking my temperature, they follow suit. So again, I haven't been out there standing by the thermometers, making sure that everyone is doing it. But yeah, if you're gonna have somebody do it, that's fine.
Okay, just as a reminder, per the COVID operational policy, everybody that comes into the building, mechanics, service line, every one of your employees has to do a thermometer check. And that's in change order 1. So if, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't seem like that's happening now. So if you can implement whatever processes you need to do to comply with that policy, and then we'll more likely send a person to observe that your compliance with that.
That's good.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. That sounds reasonable. Okay. Any other comments or points on that before we move on to the next item? Okay. Good report, Corey. Thank you. Next person up. Who's next? I'm
This
kind
is
of
Leroy again.
okay.
Just wanted to update the committee. I did speak with Lovelace this past week and submitted dates for testing in 2021. We talked about January, February, and March. So the dates that I've submitted to Lovelace for COVID testing is January 5th and 6th, February 2nd and 3rd, and March 2nd and 3rd. And they will be confirming those in the next day or the first of next week. But those are the dates that we spoke about and what I submitted to them. And we have the flexibility. If for some reason we feel we don't need those dates, we can change them or drop them, or if we feel that we need additional days, they will work with us on that also. And it's just and I think it's important, and and Corey and I talked about this, is the staff and employees appreciate us kind of looking forward and putting these dates on the book. So when they see us go from December to January, February, March, they appreciate that because they feel that this is still priority for us, but also for them to make sure that they're safe out there, and also not only them, but all the routers that they're interacting with too, that we're doing this and we're offering this for them as far as their safety. And as far as the executive order, the governor did extend that executive order on October 24th for another 15 days. So that's been extended by the governor. And also as far as our COVID-19 policy, that's still in place, where we're practicing wearing or making sure that masks are being worn on our buses. Social distancing is still in place, and all the other guidelines there on the policy, it's still in place. And that's it for my portion.
All right. Now we kind of got out of sequence here, so I'm not sure what. Okay, that was. What's the next item on this agenda here? Next one should be, I guess, Director office spacing and social distancing. Is that the next item on the? That's the next item on the agenda. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Who wants to talk about that, John?
I'll introduce that item, and then I'll refer to Tanisha and Corey to assist. In the staff report on page 17 of your packet, basically, a concern has been expressed about the number of Comet and TCS personnel in the DART office space. We presently have 3 dispatchers, 3.5 reservationists, 2 road supervisors, a customer experience coordinator, and 3 customer experience representatives that can work anywhere in that office between 4 a.m. and 11 p.m. And the operations manager is in a separate office. Provided you the schedule of what RATP Dev told us in their best and final offers on how people should be working in that office. And then we generally have 3 people working at any given time between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. We are getting an opinion from the City of Columbia Fire Marshal to determine what the maximum occupancy of that space is. We also did purchase new cubicle walls to ensure employees are separated by a wall. However, that is not necessarily 6 feet apart from each other unless the middle cubicle space is not used. And based on the concern that has been expressed, just would like feedback from this committee on do we need to implement more social distancing? Do we need to evaluate other options like moving people to Common Central or having people work from home and giving them access to a telephone and a computer? Page 18 gives you an idea of what the office space looks like. And Tanisha, did you want to add anything to that based on your research?
Yes, a representative from Columbia Fire
Somebody needs
Department.
to mute the phone. We can't hear. Who is that? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, representative
That's
from
better. Go ahead.
Columbia. Can you hear?
There we go.
Better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There was a representative from Columbia Fire Department to come in to check the space capacity in the office. And as a total, without the operations manager's office, only 6 people can be inside of the office at one time. So as John said, he may have to look into scheduling or a little more spacing out if individuals are concerned about the social distancing inside of that office.
I didn't understand what you said, but
Tanisha, are you using the microphone? Because yeah, you're kind of muffled.
I was using the microphone. Can you hear me better now?
Much better.
Yes.
Okay, so I won't use the microphone. We had a representative from Columbia Fire Department come out to check the space capacity inside of the office. Other than the operations manager's office, there can only be a total of 6 individuals in that office. So we may have to look into the scheduling, or as John said, the spacing in there for social distancing if people are concerned.
I don't know what you mean if they're concerned.
Well, if the coworkers are concerned about social distancing in there, we may have to look into redoing a schedule where the schedule is staggered, or find some other means for so many people not to be in there at one time.
I follow you.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, it seems like we've got 2 givens. We've got a prescribed amount of space to work with, and we have a workload that has to be done. And so it seems to me that really the options we have, and y'all have you pointed out some of this in our packet, John, is that to look and see what part of the work can be done from another location by phone. And I don't have enough insight into how that work is shared, but the people who are up close on that can look at that to see. So that's one of the options, is that are there some people and some body of work that can be done virtually. So that's one option for us. Another one, it seems to me, I think and I'm assuming that everybody in that office wears masks all the time. That would be important. And then a third thing is I think the plexiglass or whatever the partitions are that separate the cubicles, anything that's a barrier to the movement of air from one to the other is a good thing. And then another thing is to look at the ventilation, because we know the better the ventilation in the workspace, the safer people are. So I don't know how what's doable there, but that's another thing to check. The one thing I did want to ask about that isn't mentioned, and I confess that I don't know the status of this, but I'm wondering what the value is in any sort of the new rapid response tests that some people are taking, before they enter into certain workspace. And I think I'm raising that question just for our exploring what's available because you've got a relatively small number of people. I mean, you could consider them a pod if they weren't going home and interacting with everybody in the rest of their lives like everybody has to do. But if it's and I don't know if the technology is at a point where there's a quick test that people can take before they enter that gives them some idea about their positivity or not. But I think it's just worth looking into what's available as we look at all of these possible ways that we can add protection.
Well, Ms. Mood, I agree with you, but back to the situation that we have right now, current situation. I'm gonna be honest. I walked through that center the other day, and I was just personally amazed. I was afraid. I was ready to get out of there before I walked in there, because
how close it is.
Because they're so close in there, and they are not wearing masks, because you can't wear a mask and talk on the phone like you're supposed to be. And
yes, you can wear a mask and talk on the phone. I think that's one of the things that we can't give on at all.
Excuse me. Okay, Ms. Mood. Well, they weren't wearing masks. And it was hot in there and no ventilation in there. So, John, I hope that we would try to look at something. If we could do it from home without losing any quality of work or what have you, I think that would be an option we need to look at if we don't have room elsewhere in the building. Because, and back to the reason I asked when you said if the employees were concerned, I was just wondering if we gave, an employee want to keep his job, he might not, I don't know what he can do. So we might not need to give that option as whether or not they are concerned or not. We need to assume that everybody is concerned and try to work to the best standard we can for that. But anyway, you're going to take a look at that, right, Tanisha?
Sir?
So you and John or whomever going to look at what option you think we need to take a look at? What should we try to do and get more space and distance between these individuals who are working down there in that call center?
What we could do, Mr. Leaks, is we can. This is going to be a collaborative effort between Tanisha, Leroy, and Corey to determine the scheduling of the DART employees, the scheduling of the common employees, and evaluation of having folks be able to work remotely and setting up whatever appropriate technology to do that. So I'll task my team to work with RATP Dev on that, and we could report back at the next committee meeting on progress.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Recognizing that there's a sense of urgency on this issue.
All right. Any other comments or proposals or ideas before we move on to the next item? Okay, very good. Good report. Good outcome. What's the next item on the agenda here? Masks on buses?
Yeah. I'll introduce this item and then I'm going to turn it to Leroy and Tanisha. Right now, the COVID-19 operational policy requires that we all wear masks covering your face and mouth on the buses. And there's been a recent increase of complaints from riders about social distancing and the enforcement of masks. Per our operational policy, the driver is supposed to announce you need to wear your mask, covering your nose and face. If the driver refuses to do that, then the driver basically pulls the bus over, gets out of the bus, calls dispatch, who will call law enforcement to remove the person for trespassing. And the reason why we do that is we don't want to put the driver in a dangerous situation of having a dispute with the passenger over the mask, since there's been many cases across the country of employees' assaults when it comes to mask enforcement. We also have announcements on the buses that say you must wear a mask covering your face and nose, and the destination sign should be also saying masks required to board. Just so we just wanted to bring this to, we also were giving masks on the buses, but we've discontinued that back in August just because it's now a norm of society where everywhere you go, you need to have a mask. So we just wanted to get some feedback from this committee on just masks on buses and if we should be doing anything different or how should we address some of these concerns that we're hearing. Tanisha, would you like to add anything?
Well, if you recall, back in the end of August, I think we stopped putting masks on the bus. Instead of masks, we now put the hand sanitizer wipes, which are the individual wipes. We still also have the hand sanitizer in the pump. I guess my question is, should we go back to putting masks in the dispenser? Even though masks are required, just as required as a T-shirt to be on the bus. But my question is, should we go back to supplying masks?
Let me ask you a question. Don't like to answer a question with a question, but are we having many people to approach the buses without masks? Because I go by the bus stops and it look like everybody has a mask before they, you know. So I'm just wondering how much of a problem is it for people getting on who don't already have masks?
I don't think the problem is them coming. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't think the problem is them coming to the bus with masks. From, you know, the complaints or the comments that we get, I think it's an issue of them keeping their mask on while they're on the bus.
On the bus, okay. Mm-hmm. I follow. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Mood.
So it doesn't sound like the supply of masks is the big question. I was thinking that, you know, back when we were first talking about making masks mandatory for riding, getting on the bus, we talked about kind of having a small backup supply in case a situation came up where somebody was caught without one. And I think now that may still be a good backup plan, not so much filling the dispensers with masks, but having the driver have a small supply of masks on hand in the unusual circumstances that someone appears and just doesn't have a mask with them, that we would have a way to address that and let them ride. I don't want us to give an inch on our requirement to have masks for riders. And I think even as cumbersome as the process is that we have to have, and the inconvenience that it causes other riders, if the bus is held up because of someone not wearing a mask, I really think that brings forth peer pressure to wear a mask. You know, if other riders are saying to the person, we've got to get to work, put your mask on. You know, that right. Has a lot more effect than our coming across as big law enforcement people. But y'all, I mean, yesterday we had almost 1,000 new cases in South Carolina. I mean, we are on an upswing. We're going up and not down. And so I don't want us to get lax at all. And a sign that says wear your mask, if we don't mean it, doesn't do any good.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Huggins.
I basically concur with Ms. Mood. I think we need to not put our drivers in a situation where they're disseminating masks based on who has and a frequent rider. Putting that kind of burden on a driver, I'm very cautious of. But I do agree, Ms. Mood, that we need to market the whole plan even more, letting people know that you will not ride this bus unless you enter and wear a mask while riding. I don't think we budge on that, and I just think we just continue to move forward. Now, whether or not we need to have it in the dispensers, I don't think that's the case because COVID's been going on since March. So individuals basically know they need to have a mask. So I concur with Ms. Mood, and I think we just need to move forward and give staff the opportunity to have a few masks on the bus, but at the same time not trying to populate a dispenser. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion on that item? So where that brings us with the mask situation, what we're gonna recommend doing here.
The action plan is continue with what we have with our policy. We will need to validate to make sure we have the appropriate signage on both bus doors that says you need to have a mask to enter. Continue to make sure all the buses are making those announcements. And then continue to empower the bus operator working with RATP Dev to, the driver just makes one request. And after that one request is not followed, then just implement the next phase per the policy, where we just, the driver gets off the bus and calls dispatch and waits until law enforcement and supervisor arrive to address the situation. 9 times out of 10, the passengers will get the other passenger to put on the mask because they need to get moving, or that other passenger will just get off the bus.
Exactly. Along those lines, have we had a problem that severe yet? Have we had to implement that?
Joe or Corey, can you discuss that?
I don't recall a situation that severe where we had to call law enforcement for a mask since we started. I recall very faintly at the beginning there was an instance of that happening, but I can't reach back in my mind and get the details back in July, early August. Joe, do you recall?
No, not law enforcement. I mean, we radioed to.
We pulled it over and it was a supervisor.
Operations supervisors, but not law enforcement.
That's what it was. It was an operations supervisor that went out and they got the person off the bus and then got him to put on a mask. I think then they took him where they needed to go to. So I think that was a few months back now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Situation was escalated, and the individual was given a mask by our ops supervisor and placed on another route to go to his destination.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds
So I guess
good.
really the big question though is how do we, Corey and Joe, really, how do we minimize these complaints we're getting about passengers feeling concerned that we're not enforcing the mask policy in our operational policy?
You know, that's a good question, John. And Joe and I have talked about it, and there are a lot of places to hide on a bus from a driver while they're driving and engaged in everything that driving entails. And the fact that people lower their masks and eat food or lower their masks, it's definitely happening. How does the driver really get to see all those things just using the mirror to look into the back? I'm not really sure. And it's something that we're trying to work through. And I'm open to any suggestions or ideas or anything, but it's definitely not an issue that just the Comet faces. It's an issue that's widespread, because I've talked to some of my other colleagues and asked, for instance, what do they do? But it's everything that we're doing right now, which is there's an annunciator, there's a sign that says that the driver says you got to make sure you're wearing your mask before he closes the door. They're doing the rear boarding and rear lighting. I'm not sure that we're not doing everything possible, but like I said, I'm definitely open to any suggestions that anyone has. Other than the only other thing we could do is basically have bus monitors, John, and have people literally riding the bus, kind of like they do in the school bus situation, and just monitor the situation on each bus. That's the only thing you could do, and it comes at a cost.
That's true. Have you you talked to your other fellow general managers at other RATP Dev properties and how they're handling this?
No, I've been talking to folks that not just RATP Dev, but also the folks from First and from National, and they're doing it a lot the same that we are. In some of those places are smaller systems. Some of those places have paratransit buses, which are easier to really see in the back of. So it all really depends on what you have, but I'm not seeing anything. I haven't got any jewel that I can take back and utilize here at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And Mr. Chairman, I can listen and believe that there's no one single perfect solution to this, that we just have to keep minimizing the risk as well as we can. And I do appreciate the fact that the bus driver can't be looking in his rearview mirror all the time. He's driving a bus too. So I always lean toward having fellow riders make an appeal to each other, because I think basically people who ride the buses do care about each other, and so I always think they are our best allies.
I agree. And that's where it would come from. You know, if a person is sitting next to me, not wearing a mask, I don't know what to do. I don't know whether I'm supposed to corral that person or whether the driver should take care of be in charge of the situation or what. So we got to make sure that the driver understands that he supports the passenger who might be complaining. Not necessarily looking in his rearview mirror and seeing who's not wearing one, but if the person sitting next to him complains and he said, well, you know, I don't have anything to do with that, or, you know, I'm just saying. So I agree with you, Lil. I agree with you. Go ahead.
But if he gets a complaint on the bus, I mean, he has the policy to, or he or she has the policy to follow. And you know, I think in general our society has a lot to learn about how we communicate with each other. But it's a very different thing for me to have somebody take a mask off by me and for me to say, you know, I've got a small baby at home, and this is scary stuff to me, and I'd really appreciate it if you wear your mask. You know, that's a very different thing from saying, you got to wear a mask or I'm going to report you. You know, you hear the difference.
Yeah.
So we just have to.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. But sometimes you tell somebody to put a mask, he might draw a pistol on you. See, that's the part that most people are afraid of.
Well, and I don't, you know, that's why I don't think our fellow riders are enforcers, but I think they can appeal to the better nature of their fellow travelers.
Well, I tell you what, then, John and Corey and the rest of you, why don't you go ahead and see what you can come up with that, and that brings us back to John. What you're saying, we're just going to implement, enforce, continue with the policy that we're doing. That's what you said, right?
That's correct. Yes.
And,
you know what? I had one other thought. I wonder if there's a way to have posters of some kind that have pictures of people who would be riders and what they are going to, whether it's their destination where people in their offices will be affected by whether they are positive or whether they're going home to families, you know, with just that same message that says, we all have people who are depending on us. Please wear your mask.
So like an internal campaign to our
Yes.
customers on
Yes.
why it's important to wear a mask. Okay.
Yes.
We
Yes.
can do that on the bus. We can
Yeah.
do that
Yes.
internally on the bus. Okay.
Yes, that's what I mean. Posted on those spaces inside the bus, that it just reminds people
Okay.
that
And
that
maybe
people aren't living their lives on the bus. We're all going to people who are dependent on us.
And Lil, you know what? You could be a good model to make that happen. You make the video. Let Lil be this. Okay, but yeah, that's
This little white-haired lady, you got to look out for me.
okay. I didn't know.
Colonel Lee.
I didn't know we could do that, but that's great. Go ahead, Huggins, Mr. Huggins.
Okay, it sounds to me that the operator has a handle on this. I'm afraid that hopefully we're not maximizing the minimum on the situation. And over the next, 30 days or so, if the drivers and RATSDEV can just poll their driver to see if this really is an issue or not. And issue, then we'll have to make much more aggressive steps. But what I'm hearing right now seems like we may be exacerbating something that is not even in line. So if they would just poll the drivers and keep an eye on the situation, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
And see if the volume of complaints.
Mr. August, I just wanted to add that it is it's starting to become a growing issue, because we're starting to get complaints from customers, at least 2 or 3 a week. That's why I'm bringing this to the attention.
Right, and I want us to keep watching the statistics on those complaints too, because if we're seeing movement in that, I'm like Derek. I think then we need to regroup.
Okay.
Agreed.
Sounds good to me. We're gonna take a proactive action. We do that, John. Derek, and do as you said. Okay. If no other comments on that, we move on to the next item.
Yes, I will take this one as well. This is social distancing. So with some of those complaints we're getting about masks, the question has come up about social distancing. So I just gave you some supplemental information on pages 20 through 28 on guidance from CDC and the World Health Organization, or also known as WHO, in relation to what is appropriate social distancing on transportation. CDC would rather you go with 6 feet and skip every other seat. Of course, when you do that, you lose seating capacity. WHO, however, is okay with 1 meter or 3 feet. And of course, travel for essential travel only. Presently, our operational policy follows the WHO model, and we also encourage people to use for social distancing and travel for essential travel only. Page 29, there is a concept that could possibly help mitigate some of our passengers' concerns. We'll need to see how this could work and if it's safe. But there's passenger guards that could be installed above the passenger seat. So they're basically sneeze guards in essence. And so I just wanted to bring this to the committee's attention that it's starting to become an emerging issue, and just wanted to get some feedback and thoughts on social distancing on buses. I've also, just another advisory point, APTA has a working group that meets every 2 weeks, and I've also put out the question to other transit operators across the country on how are they addressing this, because this is starting to become an emerging issue. The San Francisco Bay Area in California adopted this Bay Area Healthy Transit Plan, where all the transit operators, all 27 of them, adopted this plan on how they're going to mitigate risks to the public. And they've all opted to follow the WHO recommendation of 1 meter or 3 feet between passengers, and as well as using using sneeze guards on buses to separate riders. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or get some guidance on this.
Let me ask you, what, I guess, assuming the WHO's project idea, that's assuming that everybody wears a mask during the ride.
That's correct.
And the other thing is to put the sneeze guard up. What kind of money would we be talking about? I'm just making an estimate. I'm trying to figure out whether it'd be cheaper to put a guard on the bus or somebody on the bus, kind of like Corey said earlier, like we have on the school bus, a monitor, so to speak. Would that be cheaper than going and putting the sneeze guards in and still going back to 3 feet?
That's a good question. And I've asked the vendor if maybe we could test out one on a cutaway and one on a large bus. So they're going to be pricing what that could look like, and we can share that information. And then we can do a cost analysis on if we had bus monitors at, I don't know, minimum wage or subject to that degree, what would be cheaper?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd really like to know what sort of studies have been done to determine what the added value is of a sneeze guard with the person who's wearing a mask sitting behind somebody else. I mean, I would really like to see if anybody has studied whether, in fact, because there are ways to just measure the aerosol in the air from people just sitting behind somebody with a mask on and see people sitting behind somebody with a mask and a sneeze guard. So it'd be interesting to know whether we have any of the public health folks who've been studying that.
Well, I can tell you just from a scientific and a physical point of, and a physics point of view, a sneeze guard not going to do very much good if that person not wearing a mask, because that stuff floats, aerosols, floats around and goes through crevices that you don't even know exist. So
well, that's kind of my hunch, but I'm always in favor if somebody has evidence that shows something different that we look at it.
Yep. Okay. Good. Very good point, Lil.
Mr.
John,
Chair.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, go ahead, Derek.
I understand what the World Health Organization is saying. John, do you know what's happening in our adjacent states and what they're trying to do and what kind of models they're going after? You don't have to answer that question right now, but I would like to put it on your plate to look at North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida to see what the possibilities are and what they're doing.
Yeah, so actually I can answer that. I'm a delegate on the Community Transportation Association of America, representing South Carolina, and we just had a Southeastern meeting with all of the CTAA members, which includes a lot of the rural, small urban, and large urban transit operators in the states that you mentioned. And this is an emerging issue. Everybody is not consistent on this. Some transit operators are social distancing 6 feet, blocking every other seat and every other bench, which is drastically reducing their capacity. Some transit operators are doing what we're doing. Some transit operators are just skipping every other seat. So that's why I posed the question to the APTA bus operator subcommittee from a national perspective on, is there going to be an appropriate nationwide standard? Is FTA going to be coming up with something? Because there's a lot of inconsistent information from between WHO and CDC and even the state's Department of Health on this matter, where no transit operator is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another thought on that is that when I read the material that you sent us in the packet, is when you say, well, what are the alternatives for riders? You know, if we put so much spacing that we can't carry everybody on the buses who need to ride, what are the alternatives? Well, when people start sharing a ride, I mean, you've got people in a car, which puts them probably at greater risk than what the standard is that we're operating on the bus. Even the WHO standard, even the World Health Organization standard.
Right.
Okay. Well,
so we've for those riders that have expressed complaints about social distancing, we've explained our position about the WHO standard and the measures that we're taking to keep people safe. It's kind of has somewhat satisfied some of those riders, but I just want this committee to be aware. It's becoming an emerging issue, and I think because we keep yo-yoing about cases going up and down, I think citizens in general across the country are getting to become a bit heightened in relation to this pandemic, and they're starting to be a little more cautious of when they see something that is not consistent with what they've heard either through the media or other governmental agencies.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I appreciate their being watchful and alerting us if they see things that are problems. I appreciate that. I don't want us to discourage them from doing that.
That's right. Very good. All right. So where that brings us, John, what we're going to do? We're going to repeat again what you said we're going to do. What are our plans before we move on to the next item?
I think as it relates to this matter, I'll continue to just research information on the sneeze guards. I'll bring this back to the committee so you can hear it, and then we'll continue to take our position on what we tell the public about what we're trying to do to keep them safe and how we're social distancing on the bus utilizing the WHO standard. And any feedback we hear from the APTA subcommittee or any other transit operators, we'll definitely share with this committee and see if it's a good best practice for us to consider.
Sounds good to me. Any other comments on that? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is item D, 4 Delta, resumption of fare collections. John, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll make this fairly quick. I know there's been some discussion about do we need to go back to fares? And you know we've been fare-free since March 17 of 2020, and that the fare-free will continue until the driver barriers are installed and the Finance Committee reviews our financial impacts. We are estimated to have the driver barrier project, I think 100% done by mid-December. And we have this on the agenda for the Finance Committee to review our finances and develop a recommendation about fare collection or not. As you know, there is starting to become an emerging issue or a perception that the Common is transporting homeless throughout the service area, and it's starting to become an emerging issue, and perhaps the resumption of fares could mitigate that and only ensure that people who need to travel essentially are doing so. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we're in progress of getting the driver barriers done. We're in progress to discuss fare collection with the Finance Committee in December. And should we resume fare collection, that I recommend that we provide a 30-day grace period to customers from the moment the board gives that direction, so that we can reinstitute the processes to collect fares and add in the associated expense with doing so into the mid-year budget. Just wanted to get any feedback or questions on resumption of fares from this committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Lee, go ahead.
I think John's outlined a reasonable plan, because as long as we have CARES money to help us cover the cost of transport to make up for the fact that we aren't charging fares, I've been in full support of our fare-free policy, because both in terms of it cutting down on the interaction time with drivers and the boarding time and that kind of protection, as well as being a help to people who are trying to stretch budgets to get to essential jobs and not adding a cost. So as long as we had money to cover that, I think we're in a different position from if we don't. So I think the process that John's outlined in terms of taking things to the Finance Committee is, I think that because we really are hard up against whether we can afford to do this or not, and so I think we just need to follow the plan he's outlined.
Okay, very good. Well, you know, all along though, the whole purpose of fare-free was not for any purpose other than to protect the drivers by having people go through the back door. That was the only reason we put it in the first place. So once we get those barriers up, barriers up, then I thought all along the intent was to go back to fare collection, because it's very hard to just give up $2.5 million a year for nothing, even though we do have CARES money. So John, go ahead and see what we can do, and once we get those barriers up. But I'm surprised. I thought we were gonna have those barriers up by the end of November.
So all the cutaway buses are done. The prototype is supposed to be installed on November 2 on one of our New Flyer 2010 models and one of our New Flyer 2017 models. Once that is done and everything is okay with the prototype, then they're going to go on mass production for the Balance 37. The reason why I just said mid-December is we just have a few outlier vehicles that still need barriers, and we're still getting those resolved. They're the 2 trolleys and the 2 minivans. But I believe that the majority of the fleet, like 99% of the fleet, should be done by end of November, early December, assuming that there's no fatal flaws with the barrier.
Okay.
On the big buses.
Okay, very good. So sound like control. and we should have them in by the middle of December, and then take that before the Finance Committee and see what they have to say, so we can go ahead and reinstitute those fares, and it might cut down on some of the low free riders of buses and the homeless people. That's what was brought up at the meeting the other day, and that kind of thing. So we work towards doing that.
I am working on an agreement with a local nonprofit, so we can have like a homeless outreach person that can help us in providing that social service to, and like if there's homeless vets or homeless persons in our bus shelters or riding buses, to connect them to services. So we're not necessarily criminalizing that offense and be more proactive. So I'm hoping to have some relationship resolved by mid-November to early December.
Oh, that sounds very good.
We have in the budget $30,000 reserved for this. So.
All right. I'm glad to hear that, because I did the intent. Well, yeah, I'm glad to hear that. So that's good, John. Okay, look, we skipped one.
Colonel Lee.
Yes.
Colonel Lee.
Yes. Yes,
I want to applaud John on his direction on how he's moving and being sensitive towards the homeless needs. And push this through to the proper committee so we can get it to the board and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. That normally would bring us to item 5, but some way we missed 4B. Can you give us a quick update on 4B, which is vehicle cleaning? And
I'll
then
turn that to Tanisha and Corey.
Corey?
Go ahead, Tanisha.
Okay. So this week, vehicle cleanliness is, in the last couple of weeks, I'll put it like that, from the last 2 weeks, vehicle cleanliness is coming along well. We had some problems, I guess, with the bus wash and the pressure washer. So the bus wash has been, it was stated it was fully repaired, but what we're learning is it's 85 to 90% repaired. One of the brushes, they're waiting to see if they can get an adjustment for the brush to come out a little more. But what we found is...
I'm sorry, Tanisha, you called me and I was on mute. I was talking the whole darn time. She's correct, but it's not a brush. It's the piston for the brush. But it's not pushing it around the back side of the bus.
Right.
It's an older bus wash, and we have Ross and White coming out to take a look at that. We're also going to see if we can get that piston rebuilt if it's not something that they currently still offer, which could be true. We also talked to John a little bit yesterday that if that needs to go into the capital plan while we have some money for it, we need to make a suggestion. Ronnie and I, looking at that bus wash yesterday, I bet you got 2 or 3 years before it becomes obsolete on parts. But we'll wait and see what Ross and White has to say when they come out.
Okay. We also have to ensure that the service line, I think they're either going through some retraining now. The service line has to keep a speed of at least 2 to 3 miles per hour as they go through the bus wash. So if they stop anywhere inside of the bus wash, everything's going to stop. The brushes are going to stop. The blower's not going to blow and drive the bus. So that leaves you with a soapy, wet bus coming through and parking on the line. But I think they're going through some kind of retraining just to make sure everyone knows to keep their speed going through the bus wash and not to stop. The pressure washer was also repaired this week and is fully functional. A hot seat representative came out to repair the on-off switch and the limiting switch that was in there. So now the pressure washer is 100% working also.
Okay, sounds good. Corey.
And I'll add Tanisha as well. Not only do we have some retraining going on about how to use the bus wash correctly and how to utilize the brushes and what have you, but we also have a retraining on how to get the inside and interior to the cleanliness that we expect for them to have. We also have CarePro starting this weekend on their detailing, relieving another company that had been doing it in the past that had a little bit of trouble delivering. So we're looking forward to working with them starting this weekend.
Okay. Corey,
That
now,
sounds like
how-
progress.
Okay, Corey, my question, how long do you think it would take this company to rebuild this system that you're talking about? Are we talking about, oh, you don't know, is it weeks, or are we talking about months, or what are we talking about?
It's been a long time since I've done anything in the hydraulics field. It's a hydraulic piston. It's pneumatic hydraulic. I imagine that a local hydraulic shop could do it, but I also know that having worked with big earth excavators and stuff like that, like sometimes you can be in a backlog for a couple months before they get to your. It depends on who has friends in the neighborhood. And Kevin Budrick, who's our supervisor, seems to know just about everybody in in the state of South Carolina that can assist and get us to the top of the line. So I would hope that we could get it done quickly. But I couldn't give you an experience on it.
Okay, well, another question then. In the meantime, what can we do to clean the back of those buses?
Oh,
can
not
we
a
take
problem.
a big brush?
We did. Yeah, we already did it. So we bought some buckets and some soap buckets and some brushes, and we're just gonna do it manually because the rinsing portion of it is gonna work. It's just the brushes don't come around the back side of the bus that they should do. So what they do is they come off the fuel island, they hit the next, which is the bucket brush. We give it a good swab, that and the tires, and then it goes through and it gets its rinsing cycle done.
Okay, all right. That sounds like a good sense. One other question. I was thinking about this last night. I have two truck stops down here near me. One is called Love and one called Petra. Have we ever had to consider using those truck stop washes to wash our buses? Have we ever thought about anything like that? Or you know any bus companies, transit operations that ever used any system such as that? Just curious.
Are you asking me, Colonel Leaks?
Yeah. Either you or John. Yeah, you go ahead, Corey. Go ahead.
Yes, I have tried to partner with them before, but quite frankly, the bus washes were expensive, $18 to $20 a pop. When you want to do a fleet of 150, 200 buses a day, it becomes pretty prohibitive. They were also really designed for trucks and not buses, so they were still not getting the backs and the wheels just kind of like you wanted it to do. I only ever tried that in the Northeast, and the reason I did it in the Northeast, of course, is because of all the salt and corrosion that goes down over the wintertime. But I haven't had good luck, and that's all I can say about that.
Okay, one final question. The washing the wheels on these buses. Now, the way our bus washing system is designed, I didn't see any brushes that's designed to wash the wheels.
You're right. There's just a high power. If you look as you go into the bus wash itself, if you want to come by, I kind of give you a tour of the bus wash and kind of explain how it works too. But if you walk into the bus wash on the right and left hand side, you'll see these little like copper pipes, kind of like in a, I don't know, almost looks like an outstretched like claw, you know. And those are supposed to spray high pressure water at the vehicles, and that's a concept that probably never worked. So that's also why we're never going to stop doing the brushes. We're using the brushes also on the wheels.
Okay, so that was my final question, because I noticed, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I noticed in the past our buses have had very shiny chrome hubs or wheels or whatever you want to call them, and now they all look black. And that kind of hurts my heart when I see you going down the street with black wheels rather than the chrome wheels. So I'm just wondering, how can we get those wheels, those wheels back to a shiny chrome like they used to be?
Yeah, Ronnie Sweeney feels the same way as you. He talks about it all the time. You know, you can put a man in a nice suit, but if he shows it with scuffed up shoes, it ruins the whole picture, right? So that's Ronnie Sweeney, not me. So, you know, if you like that quote, attribute it to him. But quite frankly, he feels the same as you. And he is definitely on top of getting those wheels back to where they need to be. And we talk about it all the time. Like, Ronnie, you got to get that straight. He's like, I got plans. We're getting it in motion. But, you know, everything sort of takes time. You got to order stuff. You got to train people. And unfortunately, I wish it was I could wave a magic wand and just make it happen. But I do have to, you know, respect you got to order items, you got to get some stuff in, you got to train the people how to really do it. Then you got to make sure that training sticks. So it takes a little bit, and I apologize for that, but I know that Ronnie is right on top of that.
Okay.
Colonel Lee.
Right.
Colonel Lee.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is
Mhm.
This is Huggins. As I stated in the last meeting, service standards and committee chair sits on the COVID committee, and we're going to do it extensive. And I'm speaking out of turn, and if Ms. Mood wants to reiterate what I'm saying, but I really do believe that the external wheels and chrome hubcaps and all that, that's a service standards issue. And I can understand what's going on with the cleaning of the interior of the buses. I think that falls more in line with COVID. But if you would give the Service Standards Committee the opportunity to address the full board on how we're going to move forward to correct that problem, I would appreciate it in the essence of time. Thank you.
I appreciate your making that distinction, because these are items that, as a system, we're concerned about, but I think the focus on the exterior cleaning does lie with the service committee. Thanks, Jared.
Okay, well, that's good, but I just wanted to know it. I need to know the answer, and it's on here, and I think that's a part of cleaning, and I think it's appropriate to ask about it at this time. But okay, we'll move on to the next item.
Colonel Leaks, may I say something? Well, I appreciate Mr. Huggins, and I appreciate Ms. Mood was saying that, but in my busing experience, the outside reflects the inside, and so though I do agree with you, maybe it's inappropriate in this committee. There is some correlation you can draw outside to inside, and so we've instituted. I wasn't happy with the way the buses were being done inside. I've done some corrective action stuff with our vendor. I also have my quality assurance as well as myself, Ronnie, and Joe, going out and making sure that the buses that I have on my check sheet are actually fully cleaned. If they're not, what I do is I send them back in at 9 o'clock and get them cleaned, because that's when the service crew starts showing up. Anything that's missing, anything that's deficient, I take care of it at that point in time.
That sounds very good to me.
Sounds good, Corey. Sounds good. And Corey,
it's the best I can do in an imperfect world, so I appreciate it.
Okay, and that's very good. Appreciate that. And whatever you can do to get those chrome wheels looking shiny again, you do that. Any other?
I heard you, Colonel Leaks.
You ready for a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Properly moved to second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
gentlemen. Thank you.